Hi, my name's May-Finlay. I'm a Yorta woman and I was brought up on Awabakal country, which is the country you can see behind me. I'm a PhD student and I work in Aboriginal public health as well, policy and research. So I'm just having a yarn today about how to engage with the media after someone has taken their own lives. We know that at times you might feel angry and upset and you want to say something which is, normal. When talking to media, whether it be TV, radio, a journalist who's going to write something in a newspaper, there's some things that you want to think about before you actually talk to anyone. That way you can be really clear on what it is you're trying to communicate. But you also need to think about how this is going to be used, where it's going to be used, so that you can think about what your key messages are. Now remember, promoting things like helplines is really important. But what you also need to think about is some of the negatives involved in talking to media. So, for example, you don't actually have any control over what they say and how they say it. Once it's out there, you can't get it back either. So you need to be really careful about what you say, and you need to really think carefully about what it is you're trying to achieve when you're talking to the media. So you need to think about whether or not you're the most appropriate person to talk, and maybe getting together as a community and making a decision about who should be talking on behalf of the community and how they should actually be communicating the community's messages is really important. Writing down some notes might be really helpful that you all agree to. And then if someone contacts you or contacts somebody else, at least you know you can refer them to that person or people and they can actually talk appropriately. Because remember, you never quite know how different people are going to respond to what's happening in community, and once it's in the media, different people are going to feel things differently because it affects us differently when someone dies. And what might be appropriate for you might not be appropriate for other people. We know that there's stuff that's happening in our communities that isn't great. We also know that there's a lot of really positive stuff that's happening in our communities, and it's those messages as well as what's just happened that's really important to communicate. We know there's a lot of drawbacks about talking to the media, but there's also some really positive things about talking to media. I mean, one of the things that you can communicate when you're discussing with media is actually what's happening in your community, the solutions that you guys have worked on, because we know that when there are suicides happening in communities, that there are things that you guys are doing, and that often isn't well known. All people often hear in the media is the negative stuff. So you can also communicate to people within your own community that might be really vulnerable and talk to them about how there is help available, that it's really important that they seek help as well, and actually name some of that help, whether it be an Aboriginal community controlled health service or another health service, or even some of the helplines, or it might be a men's group, it might be a women's group, but essentially just promoting that there is stuff happening in your community and there is support available. The other things that you might want to think about talking with the media is it's a good advocacy tool as well. So you might want to think about how this is going to convey to your local politician, to other funding bodies, and think about the fact that we are going to be addressing these issues in community a long time. They're not going to go away anytime soon, and that we will need ongoing funding. So it could be that you want to use this as an opportunity to say these are the amazing things that are happening and that your funding's running out in 12 months, and actually talk about what you would like to see for the future. You might also want to think about some of the things you don't want to say. So you might not want to actually glorify or memorialise suicide, because it is actually something that can trigger other people. One of the things that probably is best to avoid is actually talking about how they took their own lives. We don't want to actually see people in the community see that method and think that that is something that they could do. That's the last thing that I know everyone wants at a time like this, is to see repeats of it, and so avoiding talking about the method is one way of doing that. So when talking about suicide, there's some words which we should avoid, which include things like committed suicide. The word committed kind of has that connotations of committing a crime or committing a sin, and those negative connotations. While we don't want to glorify suicide, we also don't want to make the person who has taken their own lives seem like a bad person. So instead, think about using language like chose to take their own lives. You could also use completed suicide too if you would like. So just be really careful about the language you use. We really just want to make sure that we're conveying the message that you want to convey, but also not either glorifying that person or also making them seem like a bad person. Talking about suicide can be really hard on people. It's hard when you've lost someone, it's hard when this has affected other people you care about. If this has triggered something for you today, please make sure that you actually reach out and talk to somebody, whether it be a health professional at your local Aboriginal medical service or whether you're talking to an elder, a friend or a family member. The most important thing is that you take care of yourself, because you can't take care of your community and your family if you don't take care of yourself.